Welcome back with another pickup. Picked up this vintage downhill bike just because I've always wanted one. Will it be worth the time and money that I spent into it? I don't know, but we'll find out. It's a Kona Stinky 2003 in this kind of blue purplish color, pretty sick. Up the front we got some lock-on grips, Hayes brakes on one side, got the old 9-speed shifter. The shifter is broken. And then we got some Kona downhill bars with about, I'd say 2.5 inches rise. Kona stem, 70 mil. And then we got the Tektro brakes on this side, Gira comp. 3x on this side it looks like, same lock-on grips. Got this cool, super cool Kona 3-dog stem cap. And then here you can see the Kona stem, A-head headset, done by Cane Creek. Got the Kona logo on the front. Got these super cool Dirt Jumper 3 Marzocchis on here. Pretty decent condition. I think there is like a couple marks on the stanchions, but not much you can do about that. Right there. And then the front wheel, I think it's just a Shimano wheel, just your basic wheel. Yeah, you can see it's not sealed bearings, just ball bearing, I think. Large rotors on the front as well. The rims are Mavics 219 disc, and then the tires we got on the front is Ardent 26 by 2.25. Seems pretty worn or wornish. Down here on the top tube you can see the routing goes on the top. And then the frame, I think the frame is in really good condition. No dents that I can see, just a little bit dirty. And then down here we've got the Fox Vanilla shock. I think it's just the lowest option on this one. And then this is the spring rate 550. Down here we got LX front Mac. And then we've got the Kona bash guard again, super cool. True Vati or True Vativ hustle felt cranks. Hopefully when I take these pedals off it's not gonna strip again like what last time. Got these Kona pedals, pretty cool, but the bearings are like super short. And then the chain here seems pretty decent condition. Here's the chainstay, super cool chainstay with the Kona guard as well. And then LX on the back. And the cassette is a 9-speed, but I did ride it around for a bit and it tends to slip on these few gears. So I think either pretty sure the cassette is worn or the teeth here are worn too, but I'm pretty sure it's the cassette. And then on the back got Maxxis Ardent. I think this is a newer tire with the EXO protection, 2.4s, 26 by 2.4s. And then got the same matching Mavic rims, which is sick. Same type of hub here. I think here you got the number M475. I think that's maybe Dior, I can look it up. Same size rotor on the back, I think it's 203. And then got, looks like a twin piston brake on the back, the Tektro. And yeah, everything looks pretty good. Got some rust on the bolts here, but I've ridden around this a little bit and it feels pretty fun, feels pretty good. And then here you got the seat post. I think this is a no-name seat post, but it looks like a Synchros rip-off. And yeah, it does move up and down, so pretty stoked about that. And then got this Kona SDG saddle, pretty ripped up on the back here unfortunately, so either have to find a new saddle or do another wrap job. But yeah, cool shape for sure. So yeah, that's basically the bike. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. I do want to upgrade a few parts on it, mainly I think the brakes if I can find some, and the cranks. I'm going to replace the stem to a shorter stem as well, just because I can lift up the front a bit easier. This is a large, this is an 18. I probably would be better off on a medium, but I've ridden around and it doesn't feel too bad at all. Even with the 70 mil, my knees are starting to get close to the bars, so I don't know, maybe I should measure this top tube and see. But yeah, overall pretty sick, pretty stoked on it. We're gonna try to rip it apart, do it up and see how it goes. So yeah, just here, just taking the bike apart. So with the bike, on the listing it was listed as a medium with a little question mark after medium, so I think the guy was just having a guess too. But yeah, I found out when I looked up the old catalogs online and measured the frame. And then after doing more research, it turns out that a lot of the old downhill bikes have quite a short reach. I think that was just how they were designed back in the day. Funny enough, I was watching a GCN video about the old mountain bikes, old downhill bikes, and they actually recommend going a size up if you're planning to ride one today. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I've ridden to the city and stuff back, and yeah, it felt pretty good. But yeah, I think once I start going off jumps and stuff, maybe the downhill, maybe the standover height might be too much, but yeah, we won't know until we find out. Anyways, if worst comes to worst, I can always chuck a 24 on the back, 24-inch wheel on the back to lower it a bit. So yeah, got some options. And then here I'm just taking apart the bike. So yeah, this was a lockdown project. So the person said they, rebuilt it. So I didn't expect anything would be too hard to undo. But yeah, it's been sitting for a while, I think a few years at least. So we'll see how we go. You might be asking, if someone already rebuilt it, do I really need to redo it? And yeah, for me, I just want to do it just to make sure everything's super fresh. So yeah, the answer is yes for me. And then here, just taking up the cranks. To take off these ISIS cranks, on my tool, you got to switch this out. So flip it the other side. And this little bit actually screws on the end of your tool, but mine is kind of mushroom. So I kind of just push it in there. And then make sure you unwind the tool all the way, and then it should push on that end. Being careful, not to knock it, the little unit tool. Make sure it's aligned, and then yeah, just slowly wind it in, and it should come undone. And yeah, these cranks came off pretty easy, no issues. And then yeah, the same thing with the other side here. Just undo the bolt. And then yeah, here it is, a little bit easier to see. Just push it in there. It should kind of not hit those threads on the side or those grooves on the side. Should hit yeah, just the bottom bracket spindle. And then yeah, give it a quarter turn to make sure the tool is seated, and wind it down. And yeah, it should come apart. If it doesn't come apart, you might need to spray a little bit of double D40 to loosen it a little bit, but I think this one was good. And then here, taking off the bottom bracket, just using this notch tool and a wrench. And yeah, it was pretty funny. I was ready to, put tons of effort to undo it, but it just came off real easy. I think I could just unturn it with my fingers, so that made things easy. And then here on the other side, this side was super tight. Yeah, way harder than the left-hand side. But yeah, you can see why. Pretty gnarly in there. At least it's been packed in with grease though, so it looks alright. Not too much rust. It's just it looks like the grease has just discolored. And then here's what it looks like inside. I think there's maybe some slight corrosion on there, but nothing too bad. And then here, just taking off these disc brakes, you can see it's using that big bracket for the bigger router, so I'm going to reuse that bracket. But yeah, these just unscrewed off, not too much to it. And then snipping the little cable ties. I read somewhere some people don't do up the top one because they've had their cable get stuck in the suspension and it like snaps their hose. But yeah, I need to pay attention to that when I rebuild the bike. Here I'm taking off the front of the brake, just that came off, has a little bracket as well. Again, make sure you screw the screws back in so you don't forget where your screws are. And then here, these little lock-on grips. I actually think these lock-on grips look pretty cool. Maybe I can repurpose them somehow. But yeah, just a little bit of WD-40 in the little grub screws, and then yeah, they came off pretty easily. You can see the bars are pretty scratched up, but yeah, I feel like this bike's been around for a bit. And then taking off the brake lever and the brake now, and then also yeah, just the rest of the cables, the shifters, same thing with the other grip. A little bit of WD-40 goes a long way too. And then here taking off the haze brake. The guy said the other haze brake was like fully corroded, so he had to replace it. But yeah, the other one, I think there was some corrosion on the front, but yeah, it's pretty old brake. I think it probably leaked or something. Here taking off the bars and taking off the stem. Just unwind it, should come out, cool little top cap. And then the steerer is a good size as well. Sometimes you take off a stem and then the steerer has been cut like super low. And yeah, that's always a shock. But yeah, this one's alright, so you got pretty lucky. And then here taking off the wheels. Yeah, the bike came apart pretty easy, which was, I think, which was a given, you know. Seeing the other guy already took it apart. And then here just taking off the stem. The stem was on super tight. I don't know if it was this stem or the steerer, but it was, yeah, pretty tight on there. And then taking off the spacers and then popping off the forks. Sometimes you gotta use a mallet and bang on the top, but you can also use your hand just like me. And yeah, this headset again. This is the same one that was on my scab, and the headset was yeah, looking pretty rough. You can see inside the race was pretty worn, and yeah, here's just how I organized my parts. But yeah, it's actually a pretty cool looking headset. It's a shame because I'll probably have to replace it. And then here, to undo the shock, you just wind it with your hand. I actually didn't know how to do this. I had to ask around and look it up, but that's how you loosen it for people that don't know. And then yeah, just taking the shock off, undoing this bolt. I think this bolt was on pretty tight, but yeah, it wasn't too much trouble. Pulling this out, pretty rusted in there. And then pulling out the shock. There's another bolt at the bottom, and then I just use a 10mm and a socket tool. Both are 10, so you need two 10mm wrenches or sockets. And then yeah, just this was pretty tight as well. I don't think this was probably undone since factory. Neither was the top one, I don't think. There we go, got the shock out. And then here, taking off the linkage. Yeah, I kind of want to check the bearings to see how the bearings are with the linkage. I did check the play, like side to side play of the frame, and riding around and everything for a little bit, I didn't notice any side play, so I thought the bearings should be pretty good, or the frame is pretty decent, but I'll check out the bearings once I take it apart. And then here there's another screw on top, just like that, and then a screw on the bottom, and then this bolt goes straight to the frame, so no nut on the other side. Alright, so I got most of everything off here. You can see I've taken the swing arm apart just to clean up the bolts a little bit. Yeah, the bolts have rust on them, so I kind of just want to clean it up on the outside a little bit, just give them a wipe up and put these bolts in the vapor rust. And then I think I'm going to leave this, because this, for some reason, this is a 7mm Allen key. I don't have one of those, and apparently the people say if you have trouble getting this out, what you do is you unscrew this and then get a longer bolt, and then this is kind of press fit in, and then you get a longer bolt and you tap it out, and then this side should pop out. But honestly, this is feeling pretty good. There's no play on it side to side, so for this bit I'm just gonna clean it up. There's really no rust on this bolt either, or on the back. It's pretty clean. So I'm gonna leave that as is, and yeah, everything else is off. The headset seems a little bit worn. I might replace that, see what I got. And then yeah, everything came off pretty easy. Here's the other wheel, and yeah, all the parts and everything. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. I'm gonna give this frame a clean up, and yeah, see how it goes. Yeah, it's always exciting taking apart a new frame, just because I've never done a dual suspension bike before. I didn't know if there would be any issues or anything, but it all came apart pretty easy. I think just the design of it was pretty simple, not too much complex parts, kind of just unbolted, and yeah, that made it really easy. And then here I'm just cleaning the frame up, just kind of wiping it down using WD-40 on harder spots. I spray it with like a detergent soap spray first. You can see here WD-40 in the BB just because it was so dirty, just to kind of break up that grease a little bit. And then I just let it soak a little bit before I go in there with a wire brush. But yeah, I use a nylon brush on the outside, try not to scratch the paint or anything. The paint is probably pretty scratched up anyway, but you know, just try not to scratch it more. But yeah, here you can see, yeah, just brush on the inside, give it a clean. Here with the wire brush really gets rid of the dirt. And that's, yeah, looking pretty sweet, I think. Super clean in there. Slight corrosion, but yeah, no issues. And then here, cleaning these little pivot bits. Yeah, there was like a lot of little dirt and stuff stuck in, so I just want to clean all the dirt out because that's where things turn, and you don't want dirt where things turn, obviously. So yeah, just give it a good clean. And then same with the other side, clean it up. Yeah, part of restoration is probably just cleaning, I'd say. But yeah, that's looking good. That's gonna turn smoother already, I think. And then here, same with the bottom pivot. I think you can actually pop these out, but I wasn't sure. So I kind of just left them in and just kind of just cleaned around it. They didn't seem too bad. I don't think there's a bearing in there, so there was no point in taking them out. But yeah, just give them a clean up, get rid of as much dirt as possible. That was looking good. And then here you can see the top tube is scratched by the wire usually, but yeah, I try to use a little bit of T-cut just to smoothen this out a little bit. So the T-cut is basically just like liquid sandpaper, very fine, and you can just kind of use it to take the top edge off, and then it should smooth it out. And I think it has like some chemicals in there to like maybe soften the paint, I'm not sure, but it's something like that. It works pretty well either way. And I just did it all over the frame. I didn't go too crazy on it because I didn't want my whole frame to be shiny. I still like a little bit of the matte look, but yeah, you can see how it looks here. I think it ended up looking pretty good. You know, of course not perfect, but yeah, just like a once over. I think that's looking pretty fresh. Alright, so I'm about to pop these little washer things out because I'm gonna try to replace the bearings. And basically what I've read is you can just put a socket over there, use a long bolt like this, and then wind it down. I thought I had a longer bolt, but this is the longest bolt I can find, so we'll see how it goes. So yeah, make sure you put the bolt on the right side so you're able to push the little inner washer through. And then yeah, basically find the right bolts and then just wind it up. You got to have a few nuts and washers just to compress it. And I compressed it all the way, but I couldn't go any more, obviously. So I need to find something else to push the little washer all the way out. Okay, so I found this. Basically it's a seat binder bolt, and it looks like it would fit right here on the inside diameter. It looks slightly smaller too, which is good. So I'm gonna clamp it down and see if that works. So yeah, it kind of goes on just like this, and then what you do is you just basically wind it on. And with this binder bolt, I need to put a nut between the bolts, so when you wind the nut, the little bolt comes up and pulls the little seat binder through. And then here I kind of stopped halfway because I was scared that if I did all the way I'd get the seat binder stuck in the bearing, and I thought maybe, hey, it's better just to tap it out. And you can see here that it was fine. After a couple of taps I was able to get it out. So yeah, you just got to make sure you use the right size tool for this. But yeah, pretty happy that came out. Sometimes it takes a little bit of experimenting when you haven't done it before. You can see the bearings quite dirty here, so I just want to give this a bit of a clean, or give it a bit of a soak before I try to pop the bearing out. And then here, same thing with the bearing, pushing it out this way. Because I'll be replacing the bearings, I'm not worried that would be destroying these ones. Usually you wouldn't want to push it from the middle of the race because it would misalign your bearing. But for me, I just wanted to get it out. So you can see I actually ended up using a bottom bracket socket tool and a couple of bolts and stuff just to be able to push that bearing out. Yeah, watching the footage back now, it looked way easier than all the stuff I went through. Basically, I had to go through and just try to match up all the combination of bolts and nuts that I have. But yeah, got it out in the end. Those were enduro bearings, by the way. And then here, same thing with the other side. Once you know how to do one side, the other side, you just repeat the same process, and it's way easier. So you can see, yeah, pop the little washer out, pretty simple. And then for this side, there was a lone, really thin washer in here. I didn't understand why that was there, but I just put it off to one side for now. And here a little bit WD-40 just to hopefully help free up the bearing. And then yeah, just again using the bottom bracket socket tool to be able to pop that out, and that came out too. Pretty dirty in there. Alright, now I got to get the washers off the other one. So you need something to hold the bearing in there while you pull the inner washer out. And it turns out I could use the seat bearing binder again, because it has a little lip on it and it can pull on the washer. So I ended up putting a socket the size of the bearing in there, and then once again a little bit of bolt action work, and I was able to pull the little washer all the way through, just like this, and that came out pretty easily. And then to get the bearing out, I used a steerer spacer and put it over there. You just need something big enough so it doesn't hit the bearing or clears the bearing. And then same thing, use a bolt, use a nut, and wind it out, and it should pull out. I'm using the socket to push on the bearing on the other side to make it come out. And there we go. That was out. Enduro bearings again. So yeah, I actually did a bunch of research on bearings. So enduro bearings are the ones manufactured for bicycles. You can see it's pretty spinny here, not super spinny, but a little bit notchy. But there's actually, there's tons of manufacturers of bearings, and I end up going with some Koyo and Izo bearings, just Japanese manufacturer, made in Japan bearings. I thought they would be pretty decent. They seem like they get a pretty good rep on the internet, and they were available at a decent price and shipped to Australia. So yeah, you can see the bigger bearing is 6001 2RS. You can see this one's pretty notchy, so it's glad I replaced it. And then the smaller bearings, they are 608 RS, and the RS basically means just the sealed side, so they protect the bearing from contaminants. I'll put a little screenshot up if you want to read it. But yeah, sometimes taking the bearings out is half the battle, and then the other half of the battle is finding replacement bearings for them in the right size and at a good cost. But yeah, basically clean the plates, all the bearings were out, pretty happy with that. And then decided to clean this little swing arm thing as well. You can see it was pretty dirty on one side, but the other side seemed alright. So yeah, just like a light water detergent spray. I use a seal pick tool from Boot Bike to get rid of all the little dirt stuff. This was super handy to have, and you can see this actually pops straight out. So yeah, after popping it out, you can give them a good clean. It has a little plastic washer and then two metal bits And you can see this is where the other thin metal washer was. Yeah, I was quite surprised they were in two different areas. Maybe the person who put the bike together just had them in different spots and just forgot. And then here, yeah, cleaning the little bracket ends, just clean them up. And then I use a little bit of T-cut. Here you can see sometimes if you want to keep the matte finish, T-cut will make it shiny. So yeah, just be careful if you're going to do that. You can see the difference here. That was cleaned up, and then all these little washers and bearings and bolts I'm going to soak in a vapor rust, give them a little bit of soak, and they should come out clean. I usually soak it for like 24 hours. Alright, things are looking pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace this headset. I think it's a little bit too worn, and yeah, I have a spare one, so I may as well just chuck it on. Don't mess around with this. If it was in better condition, I'd probably switch the cups around, but yeah, you can see it's pretty worn in there. And then I checked the cup underneath as well. Yeah, you can see here. Like if I was in a jam, I'd use it, but I'm gonna put a new one in. And this is just the one, just sealed bearings, just a generic one. Here, just popping out the headset using a headset removal tool. Shout out Darren, still going strong. And yeah, you just wait till it clicks in, and then you hammer it from the top. Yeah, if you're saving the cups, you can put your hand on the bottom. If not, you can just kind of blast them out. But yeah, I decided to hang on to them at this point. Came out pretty easy. And then same with the other side. I just end up turning the frame upside down. I find that a bit easier than hitting it upwards. But if you have trouble getting them out, you might need to spray some rust remover or WD-40 on the inside before you tap them out. But yeah, mine came out. And then just give it a quick clean on the inside. Seem no issues here, seemed pretty good. And then to put the new ones in, I'm just using this copper paste. Copper paste is for grease when you don't want it to move, so not for bearings. You want it to be removable, but not rotate. And that's perfect for headsets. And yeah, I think it's good for high heat and also stops water as well. And then here, just using my DIY headset tool again. Yeah, again, you just got to make sure it goes in straight. These are just a pipe and a few washers from Bunnings. Pretty cheap. Someone told me it's pretty cheap to get a headset tool now these days, so yeah, maybe I'll get one in the future, but it's easy just to grab this just because I have it. And then you can see here it's not going in straight, but you can kind of correct it and then just go a little bit at a time, and it should even itself out. And then you pull it all the way tight until you feel it stop, until it doesn't go anymore, and that should be a good tightness. Alright, there we go. Looking pretty sweet. Cups in. Alright, the bearings came today. Super psyched. Came relatively quick as well, so these are EZO ones, 608 RS, so basically the same, just different quality. And this is Kozo. These are the bigger ones. And yeah, here they are. These are 2 RS, so should be good. Pretty psyched to put these on. So yeah, when I ordered the bearings, it said 2 RS for both of the bearings, but you can see here printed on the shield is just RS, but they are sealed on both sides, so maybe that's correct. But yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe someone who knows about bearings might know a bit better. But yeah, either way they'll work. And then here, just greasing up the pivots, just with that copper grease again. And then before I put the bearings in, I need to get all these little pivot bits out, all the little washers and bolts. I thought it was a good time to kind of get them all ready so I can just put everything in. And then yeah, just give everything a little bit of a spray and clean up. Alright, after messing around for a little bit, I was having trouble getting this like straight down. So I think the best way is basically use the little seat thing that I was using so I can kind of align it. And I'm going to use the old bearing to push it on. Ideally, you're meant to push it on the outside of the bearing when you're pushing it in. If you have a vise, I feel like this would be way easier, but I don't. So I'm just trying to make do. So I'm going to put this bearing, I'm going to join it up like this. And then that way, it kind of has a guide and a flat edge like this, so into the hole. And then this bearing here is going to go on the outside, just like that, to create a flat edge. And hopefully what I can do is use one of the old little metal inserts and just a bolt. So yeah, what happens now, it creates a flat edge on this side. And then when I push it in, it should remain kind of straight. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. The theory is still pushing on that inner race, but I'm hoping when it pushes on that inner race, the whole thing is pressing down on the outside as well. And that way it won't misalign the inner race of the middle bearing. It won't kind of damage it. But yeah, I don't know, just kind of see how this goes. So yeah, you can still see it's a little bit crooked, but I'm going to see if I can just keep winding it and hopefully it straightens back out. Alright, so I kind of pushed it too far, so I got to get this out. And I think I'm just going to use pliers at this point just to take this out. Alright, that was fairly easy. I was lucky I didn't push it in any further. But now what you got to do is find something smaller to fit in there to push it in the rest of the way. Pretty sweet. Spins great too. Yeah, I'm glad that worked out. Otherwise I would have to, you know, order a new bearing, wait for the time for the bearing to come, and, you know, might set back the build a little bit more. But yeah, sometimes it's good when you're doing things, you just take it slow and it works out. Just don't rush it. I end up doing the same on the other side, just pushing that bearing in. And then now with the little inner washer, I just put a little bit of grease on there. And I should be able to push this in. I don't think this should have too much trouble as much as last time. But yeah, basically I just put the washer in with the other washer, the bigger washer from the bigger bearing on the other side. And then that seemed to work pretty well. And yeah, turned sweet as well. So that's all in, pretty stoked on that. Got that one in and that's ready to go. And then basically, yeah, just do the same on the other side, no brainer. Just follow exactly what you did before and then that should work. And so that's in, that's the other side. So 2 bearings in, 2 of the smaller bearings in, and then now for the bigger bearing, I need to kind of follow the same kind of technique. So I need a flat edge on one side and then the bearing guide on the other, so I can guide the bearing to make sure it goes in as straight as possible. And then a washer on top is going to help push it down, or a socket on top is going to help push it down. And then yeah, you just wind down the bolt just like that. And then you can see here I pushed it in, not all the way in, but just in enough before I took the other tool back out, and then a smaller socket in there now to push it all the way. And you can see that's working sweet too. So that went in pretty good. It was a little bit tricky to get all the bearings in before I worked out how to do it. And yeah, you definitely don't want to push them in too crooked, otherwise you could have issues. But yeah, this one was in as well. And then the bigger little race that goes on the inside, just a little bit of grease. And then these ones were way easier. I used the bolt binder in there and then the socket just to squeeze everything together. Squeeze it on its own race, and then yeah, using a little nut to move the bolt up into itself. And then yeah, that goes in. I watched a video of someone do it with a vise, and it takes about 2 seconds if you have a vise. Like, this is way easier when you press it in. But if you don't have a vise, this is how you can do it. Yeah, it just needs a little bit of planning, but it works well. So yeah, those are in. Super psyched. It took way longer than it looks like on video, but now I got everything in there, got everything cleaned up. Pretty hyped on that. And then time to install it. So yeah, a little bit of grease on the inside, put the bolt in. Basically just install it the same way that you took it out. And then there was this little washer, flat washer, and I believe it goes in on this bearing here on both sides, because it's the only bit where it sits up against and next to a flat washer that's bigger. So yeah, this is kind of like my guess of putting it next to this washer here. But yeah, who knows? It's hard to find instructions on this stuff online. At least the washers will be in the same spot on the both sides of the bike. And then here a little bit of grease before I put this little plastic washer on there, just to give it a little bit of a waterproof ability, just to help that. And then same with the other side, and then yeah, basically you just bolt it on again. Not too much to it. Kind of did all the hard work, I think, was pushing the bearings in. And then yeah, kind of just aligns like that. And yeah, all the bolts I've kind of just done up loose at the moment, because you want to give yourself a little wiggle room to put all the put the swing arm in, or the little attachment in, just so you can kind of wiggle it around. These ones, just a little bit of grease and then put it in. You also got to be careful. You don't want to put too much grease, because you don't want to attract too much dirt within the pivots. I just basically just put a very light coat on top, just to help it a bit. But then yeah, after you do that, put everything, do all the bolts up tight, and yeah, super stoked on this. It's turning so smoothly, way better than before. So yeah, pretty hyped that worked out. And then with this shock here, cleaning up the shock, there's not too much I can do with this shock. This shock, I read up on it. If you want to service it, you need like nitrous or something inside it, and I don't have one of those. I don't have one of those pumps, so I just basically just gave it a clean. Yeah, not too much servicing on this except giving it a clean. And then yeah, just peel that sticker off. I don't know, there was like a serial sticker on there, and then I decided to do what I can and put a little bit of silicone lube within the little washer at the top and on the little rod right there. So hopefully when I push it up and down, it should make it slightly smoother. And then yeah, just pump it up and down a few times, and hopefully that helps it. But yeah, who knows? This shock seemed to work alright when I was just riding it, so I don't see too much of an issue, but yeah, we'll see how it goes. And then on this shock, there's no adjustments for anything except for the spring back, or the spring tension. So yeah, in the future I would probably get another shock with the adjustments if this tends to kind of kick me off too much. And then here, just cleaning up the bolt a little bit. Just had a teeny bit of rust on the washer. I decided to get rid of it anyway, and then soak it with WD-40 to protect it. And then the shock was ready to go in. And then yeah, just a little bit of grease there again, and then a little bit of grease on the bolt just to help it. And then yeah, you just slide it in. Fit pretty well. I think this is I think this shock is like the lower end shock. This is a vanilla, this is a Fox Vanilla shock. I think there's Fox Vanilla R and then Fox Vanilla RC. And then RC is like the top one, R is the middle one, and yeah, it gives you a few more adjustments. I did look online for other shock replacements, but a lot of the shocks are different measurements.
So to replace it, you need to measure the eye to eye, which is from each of the bolt ends, and then the stroke length. So this is 200 by 50, 200 eye to eye and 50 stroke. And yeah, there wasn't a lot of shocks in that size, so might have to go of kind of like a second-hand vintage one. But yeah, anyway, that's in. That's looking pretty good. Pretty stoked with that. And yeah, the frame's ready to go. Pretty stoked on it. Happy with all the work done so far. Alright, it's fork time. So gonna give these a clean, taking off the bearings at the top, and I'm gonna remove the race as well now that I've got a new headset on there. And basically just using this tool that I made. It's just a piece of flat aluminum with a sharpened end, and then you can tap it all the way around without it scratching anything. You can see I use a little screwdriver just to help it a little bit, and a little bit WD-40 as well, just to help it along. And then basically what you want to do is just tap it all the way around, little bit by little bit, until it pops off. And yeah, it should come off eventually the more you tap it, just like that.
Alright, so I gave these a bit of a clean, but it's a little bit hard getting in here, so I decided that I am going to take it apart now. Just what you want to do is just make sure when you unscrew this, just remember to let all the air out first. I think this one doesn't have that much air in it. So yeah, let all the air out, and now I'm gonna drain the fluids.
So yeah, I think the forks worked pretty well. I pumped air in them, they hold air and they go up and down pretty smoothly. But just because it's been sitting around for a few years, I thought it'd be better to change the oil anyway. Make sure you put a little tray down before you undo the bolts, because usually oil falls out, but for this side it didn't really fall out that much. And then same with the other side here, you can see this bolt was on super tight, and when I unwound it, you can see nothing really came out at all. So I was kind of quite surprised. Sometimes what can happen is that it's pressurized inside a chamber, so when you're undoing it, just be careful, because a bunch of oil can fall out. You can see all the oil's coming out now, and at this point you got to make sure your tray is in the right spot. I think mine was a little bit over. I didn't have it exactly, but it wasn't too bad.
Alright, you can see almost dropped the fork, but I was able to put this tray under just in time. Got to clean that up a little bit. But yeah, once you take off the cap, all the pressure comes out and drops out. Doesn't seem like there's too much oil in there though. We'll see how this other side goes.
So yeah, basically same thing on the other side, just undo it. I put all the bolts and stuff in the same tray since I'm gonna clean them up anyway. But yeah, you can see all the oil being released right there. And this side ended up being a lot more. I let it drip out for quite a while.
Alright, seems like there was like way more oil in that leg than this one. This one was dripping for ages. But yeah, it's alright. Not super dirty, I don't think, but it'll be good to put some new oil in there. See, not that bad.
And then after all the oil, or most of the oil is out, you can compress the shock and then take off the spacers, take out the spring.
You can see I just cycled the fork, and this one still has oil in it coming out, so it must have still been in the chamber or the little strut in there.
So yeah, you can cycle it a few times to see if more oil comes out, but mine was about done. And then you can just pull off the lowers like this. Just gently pull them down. And then you can see the inside chamber here. Pulling down on that dropped out a lot more oil. And then the same with the other side. The other side had less, obviously, because they're already all drained out. But yeah, that's basically it. All the oil is out. Yeah, just make sure you dispose of it responsibly.
You can see these unit chamber chambers, they hold oil in that hole there. That's why they come out. They kind of like cycle in the middle, cycle on the outside as well. So when you pull that down, there's oil in there, so don't forget to take that out. Just letting that drip off a little bit before I clean this out. But yeah, that's the oil. You can see it is a little bit more dirty than I imagined. Alright, so after that, after this dries out a bit, I'll give it a clean.
So yeah, this is the old oil in the jar. You can see it's pretty dark. So yeah, with the forks, I was actually just going to run them as is because I thought they were running pretty well. But yeah, sometimes after they've been sitting for a while, you don't really know what's on the inside. So I'm glad I just had some time that I could crack it open and see how the oil is on the inside. And overall, servicing forks, these Marzoccis, aren't too bad. I feel like I've done a few now, and it's pretty much the same method, and they're built pretty simple, so they're easy to kind of put some new oil in there. I feel like that's a big thing with picking up secondhand parts or forks or whatever, is that you never know what condition they're in. Even if, you know, the seller says, oh, I just gave it a service, you don't know, like, you know, what they did. So if you have the time, it's always good to crack it open and see for yourself. Here, just cleaning up the crown, just using WD-40 and foil just to give it a once over, make it look a little bit nicer, get rid of all the dirt and all that kind of stuff. Again, not you know, super clean furbish, but it looks pretty good for me. And then here, just clean the inside of the forks. I use a piece of dowel, and you can slide it all the way through with paper towel. Some people don't like using paper towel, but because it leaves like little residue or whatever, but it's all I had. So yeah, if you have a non-dust cloth or whatever, dust-free cloth, you can use that too. And then here, just putting some silicone lube on the stanchion. I'm just using silicone grease. I forgot what it's called. It's like slickoleum or something like that. But yeah, you just put it around the seals, and then put it around the end of the stanchions, and then you can it'll help ease it in, and you can see that went on nice. And then you just slowly push it up, don't have to rush it, and then that should be sweet. And then a little bit of silicone grease on the O-ring. So wherever there's an O-ring or some type of seal, you want to put silicone grease on after you've cleaned it to make sure it kind of protects it and also stops any oil from popping out. And then just screw those in. You can only screw these in so much because you need to put the spring and the cap back on top to put a little bit of downward pressure to stop it from the rods spinning on the inside. So yeah, you just put the spacers in as well, and then wind it up just finger tight, and it should give you enough pressure to tighten the bolts on the bottom. These bolts on the bottom, they don't have to be overly tight as well, so don't go ham on them. I've heard a lot of people overdo them, and then they snap the little end off, and then there goes your fork basically. So just be careful of that.
Alright, so the oil came today, pre-stoked, and I'm using 7.5 weight. Some people move up to 10 if they're feeling a little bit soft, and I got this little, just a measuring cup. You can look online to see how much you need to put in. Mine is 155, and yeah, 7.5 was factory spec. Just measure on here.
If you don't have a measuring cup, you can also just measure from the top of the stanchion. It should clear 55 millimeters for this fork. You can also look it up for your fork online. They have different measurements. But what you want is the fork to be cycled, so all the oil's in, and then you want the fork to be compressed with nothing in it, and the oil should be 55 millimeters away from the top of the stanchion. And then after you do that, it's correct on both sides, then you can drop the spring in, drop the spacer in. Make sure you pull down the fork when you're dropping the stuff in so no oil comes out. And then you put a little bit of silicone grease on the caps because there's a seal on top. And then yeah, you just wind it down until it's nice and snug. They also have the Newton meters for how tight you should do it in the manual if you want to follow that. And then just put the little caps back on. And then yeah, these forks are basically ready to go. I think they're looking super sweet. Here's the weight of them, around 2.45 kilos with the oil in, and then here's the final forks. Looking sweet. If you've never ridden freshly serviced forks, I'd give it a go. Feels pretty good. And then here, putting the crown on, crown race on. These ones have a little notch, so you can kind of just push it down with your finger. That's the good thing about the new headsets. They're pretty easy to install the crown race. Otherwise, you need a crown race install tool and hammer it down. And then here, just putting the fork on the frame, and then the little compression cap on there as well. And yeah, here's the frame all done, looking sweet. So I was trying out a bunch of different stems, and then my stereo was super tight for some reason, so I decided to give it a measure. It's meant to be 28.6, so you can see 28.7 this way, and then the other way is 28.76, so it's a little bit more than I would want it to, and I normally don't do this because it's better to have it tight, but it was so tight I couldn't get any of the stems on. So I decided to sand it down a little bit on the drill press. Sanding takes a pretty long time, but yeah, I just went slow and kept measuring as I go, and here you can see is a lot closer to 28.6. When you get to the width, it's 28.64. I decided to stop there because I think it's better to be too tight than too loose. So yeah, if you're thinking about doing this, just make sure you keep measuring and don't take too much off. You can see the stem here still has a little trouble getting on. And then once it gets on, I actually have to push it down, and it's pretty tight. So I also tried a few different stems, but yeah, pretty happy with this.
Alright, time to give the wheels a little bit of service. The back one spins better than the front, and I've already changed the tire, 2.4. I put the bigger tire in the front. This is 2.25. Maybe I'll get some thicker tires, but I think they run alright for now, and I rode them around. They seem pretty decent. Here I notice this bearing plate is kind of off already, which is kind of strange, so I got to fix that. But yeah, other than that, not too bad. I got to take off the rotor, take off the cassette. The cassette looks good here like that, but when I ride it, it definitely slips on all these gears. So yeah, sometimes it's hard to tell until you ride it. But yeah, we'll give these a clean and redo the bearings, and should be good.
Taking out the quick release skewers, and then taking off the rotors. The rotors, just be careful you don't strip the bolts. Mine were on, the bolts were on super tight. And these are the original Hayes rotors, I think, 203s. But yeah, I ran into this weird problem where the rotor, after I did all the bolts, it wouldn't come off. It looks like it was too small for the hub. The hub stuck out where it went on, and whoever put it on just kind of just clamped it all the way down and disformed the metal. But the front one was fine, which was strange. But yeah, I'll have to take a look at that once I put it back on. Here, just taking off the cassette. You can see the cassette is slipped a few times. This was on super tight as well, so I decided to put a little bit of WD-40 on there just to help it. So yeah, you can see I was able to get it off just by hulking it. If you have trouble, you can also use the breaker bar. I was lucky I didn't have to pull out the breaker bar. But yeah, it was on super tight. And then here, just taking the cassette off. Here I start to unwind one side of the axle. And then when you're doing this, just be careful because the ball bearings will fall out. You can put a bucket or tray down to stop that. And then you can see that this little shield is in the wrong way, the opposite way, which is bad because it grinds against the bearings. It should actually go in like this. It's like an easy thing to forget because I guess intuitively you would have the whole bit next to the bearings, but yeah, it actually goes the other way. And then here, just giving everything a clean, just a wipe down, a little bit of WD-40 wire brush. You can see here the issue I'm having again with the rotor. This was the issue. You can see that this little ring on the outside was blocking the rotor. So I decided to give it a file down just all around, and then yeah, just clean it up, and then hopefully this will be a bit better. Yeah, I'm not sure why it's designed like this, because the front isn't designed like this. So yeah, just the rear. And then here, just more cleaning and more filing. You can see when the chain got stuck between the cassette and the spokes, it kind of ripped up the spokes a little bit. So I'm just basically filing just all the burrs off just to make it smooth. I like doing this just so yeah, you don't cut yourself or whatever. And then here, all done, pretty clean. The cones and cups aren't in the best condition, but I'm basically just gonna put new bearings in, grease it up, and then run them to the ground, and then maybe in the future I'll get new wheels or new hubs or whatever. Yeah, sometimes with old stuff it's like this. It's you know, obviously it's worn. Sometimes you get stuff in good condition, sometimes you get stuff in worse condition, but yeah, you got to weigh up if it's worth doing or not, and how much the replacement would cost. But yeah, for these ones I think it's worth just replacing the bearings, run them, and then yeah, in the future I'll switch them out. I think they'll be pretty fine for what I'm gonna do on them. I'm here doing the front hub now. The front hub has smaller bearings, so yeah, you can use a little magnet, take them out, and that little shield actually pops off as well. I'm just taking the ball bearings out before I pop the shield, because if I pop the shield out, all the bearings are just going to explode everywhere. So sometimes it's a bit easy like this, and yeah, you can see just a little bit of leverage and that pops out. And then this is just a little piece of aluminum flat metal bit. You can use a screwdriver or whatever. And then here, just yeah, gave it a clean. Now I'm giving the whole wheels a wash. Just give it a once over. I actually do like the set. It's you know, hubs, matching rims, and matching tires as well. So yeah, it's good to be able to clean them up and then reuse them. Yeah, it's always the age-old debate of bike companies making bike parts. Do they make them, you know, to be disposable, or if they can be fixed? If they're cheap, they have a super short life and people won't really bother to service them, or you make them a little bit better and they have a longer life. But if they're too expensive or not affordable, then they won't be accessible to a lot of people, and then you won't be able to make bike parts. But then if you're making bike parts, do you really want to make something that gets thrown out? Yeah, I don't know. That's the type of thing I think about when I'm working on bikes. Alright, so I gave all the axle and cones a clean, and then putting new bearings. Just make sure you count the bearings on each side, and then you can see this little cap goes in this way, just like that. And then the axle goes in, fresh grease of course. Just push it in, and yeah, you just have to take one side off and then put it back on, because it's the right spacing for the axle. Usually, if it's already in the dropouts, it should be pretty close. And then here, putting bearings on the other side, just grease it up. And then this little cap, it was like a little bit bent, so you can just bend it back with a little pair of pliers. Try to keep it as straight as possible, and then yeah, these just are kind of like friction fit, they just pop on. And then you just got to tighten the axle, so you want it as tight as you can, but with no play, and you want it to spin freely, not binding or anything. And sometimes it takes a little while to do this. I think this one took me more than like 10 times to set it for some reason. Sometimes it takes me 1 time. This one took me 10 times. And then here with the other wheel, loading up with grease again, you can see it's all clean, all fresh. The hub was in pretty good condition for this one, and then the bearings on the front are a little bit smaller, so yeah, make sure you get the right size and then the right amount as well, and then just load it with grease. Same on the other side. When you're putting on the other side, I tend to hold the axle with my finger so the bearings don't fall out on the opposite side. And then yeah, just load up with grease and put it on. And then the same here with tensioning the axle. You have a nut and the end screw, and then yeah, you want to tighten them against each other, but no play in the axle, and have it spin freely. To test for play, you just kind of like shake it, and you can kind of feel it with your fingers. It's kind of it's hard to show on camera, but if you do it, you'll figure it out pretty quick. And yeah, I like to turn the wheel kind of sideways as well, like that, so you can kind of feel how the bearings are and how smooth it is. And then yeah, give it a good shake. And that's pretty good. Pretty happy with that. So yeah, both of the wheels all done now. Super stoked. Fresh bearings, fresh grease, all clean, and the wheels are ready to go. And I like just chucking it on the bike just to see how it looks. I think it looks pretty good. Alright, break time. Big shout out to Olly. I posted on my Instagram looking for brakes, and yeah, he hit me up and hooked it up, gave me a good deal on them. He said they were working, but they probably need a rebuild. So yeah, not sure the condition, but yeah, super psyched on them. Always want to try them out, and yeah, now I can try it out. Thanks, Olly. So yeah, first thing I had to do was order this Hope ball cap tool. And if you're thinking of redoing brakes, just make sure you have a lot of time, because when you order from the website in Australia, you got to order it, and then it takes them 8 to 14 days to stock it, and then they got to ship it out. So yeah, it takes a little while. Here, just taking apart the brake pads. This just unscrews. This was on pretty tight as well, but I was able to get it off. You just pull that little pin out, and then you can pull the pads out. There's a little spring, and then there's pads inside. And then these pads seem pretty decent. They still got a bit of meat on them, so I'm just going to reuse them at this point. And then same with the other side. It has a little safety ring on there, but it was kind of bent already, so I just bent it off and put that aside. Undid the other side, and then yeah, that screwed off. And then the pads came out. Same thing. Here I'm going to service the calipers. What you need to do is basically hold the pistons at the top, so you can get the bottom pistons out first. And I just used a tire lever to hold the top pistons in. And it seemed like I got both of them out at a kind of good spot, so I kept pumping the lever, and then this one came out. You can see this, the condition of the pistons. I think there's a little chip here and there, but overall not too crazy. I think not too bad. And then for some reason I couldn't get this one out, this other side out. I tried for ages, I couldn't get it out because I think there was no pressure pushing it out anymore, and I couldn't pull it out with my finger. It basically, because I think it was so old that it just got stuck in there. And what I ended up doing was I ended up pushing the other piston back in to get the pressure going again. But by that time I lost like a bunch of oil. So the only thing I can really do is put more oil in again. You can see it's not working.
Alright, so I got it mounted here, so it's fairly flat. Just on the bar and the stand. And then here, what I need to do is basically block this off, and then just put more brake fluid in there so I can get the pistons out. And then these are just little plastic dividers. I'm just going to chuck those in there. And yeah, hopefully once I put more brake fluid in there, I can pop these out again. So yeah, I just got it down here, and you see the cable. Those is going to attachment, and then I've blocked the pads with those things. So yeah, hopefully this doesn't get too messy.
Yeah, it was quite funny. Like step one, I couldn't even take the pistons out. But yeah, we'll keep trying. Here, just taking off the little lid. And then there's a little, you just got to be careful when taking this off. There's like a little reservoir in there, and oil will probably pop out, so have a towel handy. Yeah, you can see just like that, and you can see this little bladder thing kind of got sucked in because I was pulling on the lever, so it kind of misshapen a little bit, but I was able to kind of pop it back out.
You can see here how much I've lost already.
So yeah, just topping it up with A little bit of dot oil, 5.1, that's what's recommended. I didn't fill up all the way this time. I think just, I didn't want it to spill out. I think this is just enough just to get it out. So I just pumped the lever a little bit, get the oil in there, and then yeah, just put the bladder back on and the cap, screw that on, and then gave it a wipe with isopropyl alcohol. Yeah, it's because the dot can wear on your parts. And then after that, I started pumping it again, and you can see it's slowly starting to come out now. So what I want to do this time is make sure they come out evenly. So you can see one side always comes out more than the other for these brakes anyway. And I had to hold the other one and pump it out. You can see it's pretty even now, but the one on the right is still coming out more. So I used these little dividers from my little container, and that allows me to kind of adjust which side comes out. You can see now I'm able to get the left hand side out, and then yeah, just kept pumping it, make sure it's pretty good until both sides were almost out. And then now I think I was ready to pump it out. But yeah, I think that's the key thing that I missed, that you need to get both of the pistons almost all the way out before you let one of the pistons out. And yeah, pretty stoked it came out. Yeah, I didn't know it was going to come out because it must have been stuck in there with dirt or whatever. But yeah, happy that it came out. And then now that's done, I gave it a clean, and then I could take the cable off. You just undo it. It was on pretty tight. You can see I had to use a lot of force. Seems like whoever did these brakes up did everything super tight. And then a little copper washer comes out on the other side as well. You can see right there, so just don't lose those. And then here with the Hope tool, just fits in like that, and then you can put a little socket kind of wrench in there and turn it. But yeah, this was like super tight. I had to use tons of power to open it up, and that came out. And yeah, just put the oil somewhere. Mine didn't have that much oil in there because I think I already lost some from putting the other pistons out. And then now that that's out, you can just push it out with either just like a rubber thing, or I just used my finger. It was still pretty hard to push out, but yeah, it came out slowly. And then yeah, the piston seemed like it's alright. And then here, same with the other side. Yeah, this one was like super stuck. I need to get the socket set wrench out and put all my weight on it and then turn it. It was like so tight, couldn't believe it. I think these must have been in there for a long time and no one ever serviced them for ages. And here, pushing the other piston out. This one was a bit harder. But yeah, got all the pistons out, pretty happy with that. All of them are in okay shape as well. I'm going to reuse the pistons, and then here's the body. Overall, I think pretty good. There's no like scratches on the inside or anything like that. And then here, just a little bit of alcohol just to clean up some of the dot oil, just because it got a little bit messy. And now it's time to take the seals out. So there's 4 seals in there, and you can use a little seal pick tool or a toothpick or any kind of small thing that's not going to scratch it. And basically you just hook on the inside of the seal and then you can pull it out. Just be careful when you do it. But yeah, basically just like that, and they pop out, and then it's the same on the other side. Once again, it's just the inner ring closer to where the piston comes out, and then there's these other inner ones here on the other side of the body as well. But yeah, not too hard to take out actually with this seal pick tool. And then once all of them came out, I can give it a clean on the inside. So again, just a little bit more of the isopropyl spray, and then yeah, just get a toothbrush, get in there, clean all the dirt out. I think usually they're not that dirty, but I think these, because they've been sitting around for a while, some of the dirt got stuck on, and yeah, had to really go ham on it and clean everything out. But yeah, once everything was clean, it was pretty satisfying. It's all done. This is a completely clean body. And then now to put everything back in, you can see there's also a little valve screw in there which I took out, but yeah, you just unwind that, not too hard. Here I'm cleaning all the seals and the ball caps, and also the pistons. So yeah, the pistons were quite dirty. They had a lot of dirt kind of caked on them, but yeah, you can just brush everything off with a toothpick, with a toothbrush. And then here, putting on some silicone grease just to cover all the seals. So yeah, again, where you have seals, you want to put some silicone grease. And I end up putting a little bit of silicone grease inside the groove as well, just a little bit at different spots, just to make sure they were nice and lubed up. And then just used a cotton bud for that. And then after doing that, the seals already go on. So the bigger one goes on the bigger side, and then the smaller one goes on the smaller side. Pretty straightforward. Just make sure they're not twisted or anything. But yeah, I found the pretty easy way is just you lay it down flat like that, and then you use a thumb on each side, and then you kind of just work it in, and it should pop in pretty easily. And this was a kind of like a quick way of doing it. Yeah, just like that. And that was in. And then now I put a little bit of silicone grease on the pistons as well, on the outside of the pistons, just to make them slide a little bit smoother. Make sure the beveled side goes down towards the body, and then the flat side goes where the pads would go. And then you just slowly work it in. Just make sure it's straight when you put it in. You don't want it crooked. And then you just slowly push down on it, and they should go in. You can see, just like that. Repeat the same for the other three. Push them in, and yeah, these are sliding way better too, nice and snug. And then after you do that, I just pushed them flush to the where the pads would go. After you do that, you want to put the ball caps back on, and again, there's a little seal on the end of the cap, so you want to put a little bit of silicone lube on there, silicone grease on there, and then screw those on. And then yeah, just do the same for the other ball cap, and yeah, do them up tight, just snug. They should be able to be undone by hand, so don't go ham on them. And then here, clean caliper all done. Got to put in the little valve screw in there. You can see this O-ring's probably seen better days, but I think it'll hold for now, so I can just put some grease on there and then tighten it up. Just I think 8mm. There we go. And then now we can go ahead and put the hose back on. So don't forget that little copper washer goes on first, and then you can wind it down. 10mm here, and then again just nice and snug. And then we're good. That's the caliper done. Stoked on that. And now with the lever, there is this little screw, adjustment screw doesn't turn, so I was wondering about this, and I was wondering if I can free it up. So I just use a little bit of WD-40, and then be careful not to get the WD-40 anywhere else. And then I use a little bit of a rubber, an old tube, and a pair of pliers just to turn it. I couldn't turn it with my fingers, it was so tight. But you can see here, turning super slowly. It must have corroded or got stuck in there somehow. I don't know why it was so tight. But after a little bit of back and forth with the WD-40 and then a little bit of grease in there, it end up turning sweet. So yeah, pretty happy I was able to get that turning. You never know with old things like that, where it's welded in there or whatever. Alright, now that's all done. Time to do the other lever. So yeah, this time definitely didn't make the same mistake of just popping out one piston. You can see I used those container dividers again and got them out like this. Just pump it out. And then yeah, it was way easier the second time, because once you know how to do it, or yeah, you're not kind of guessing on what you need to do. So yeah, that popped out, and then this one I could just wiggle it out with my finger. And then after that, you can take the braided hose off. I looked into replacing the hose just because the ones that I have on there now, They have the housing on it, the outer plastic, clear plastic for the braided hose has yellowed. And I looked into getting new braided ones, but it turned out they were a bit pricey. I think the normal ones are a bit cheaper. But yeah, I think I'll just run them as is for now, and then just see how I go. I think they should be long enough, so I don't think I'll have any issues. But yeah, we'll see how we'll go with that. And then here, taking off the ball caps, you can see this one I struggle with a lot. Gave me tons of trouble. I was trying to undo it, couldn't undo it. I couldn't grip it enough with my hand to be able to get enough leverage. And yeah, it was super hard. What I ended up doing was I ended up like stepping on it and putting my whole body weight on it to be able to kind of get it off. You can see it was hard because sometimes the tool would slip inside the cap there. But yeah, after tons of effort, I was able to get it off. And then since I had all my body weight on it anyway, I decided to take off the other one. But yeah, this cap, the previous cap was like super tight. You can see how it is on there. Must have been in there for a while. And then yeah, just dump all the oil out. And then yeah, push the pistons out again. This time I used the end of the toothbrush to push it out. Worked pretty well. Take off the little valve cap and then give it a quick clean just to get all the dot off it, and then start pulling the seals out again. Using the seal pick tool again, made easy work of that. Just like that. And then after that, gave everything a clean, wipe down. These pistons were in basically similar condition. And then again with the silicone grease everything up. Grease all the O-rings up. The O-rings were actually in good condition as well, so happy about that. And then grease all the pistons up and then put them all back in. Yeah, don't forget to grease up the ball caps as well. And then also the little valve cap. And yeah, give it a clean and put the brake hose back on. And then that's ready to go. And then the same with this side. It was just this adjustment screw that wouldn't turn. It was funny because it was the same one on both sides, but the top one, the other one, turned really easily. So I don't know what the deal was with that, but I was able to get it done. And then here I'm just switching the hoses over. You just use an 8mm and you can undo it like that. Inside there should be a copper washer, but for this side there wasn't. I guess that's happened sometimes when you get secondhand stuff, it's missing stuff. But this side, this is what it looks like in the hose. There should be a copper washer in there. You can see there's not. Should be in between those two things. So I took off this side, and you can see it's in here. But yeah, basically I just wanted to switch the housing over, or the hoses over, because I run my rear brake on the right hand side. So yeah, that was pretty easy work since all the oil was out anyway. I thought it was a good chance to do it before I re-bleed the brakes. But yeah, they're all ready to go, ready for a bleed. Here I'm just cleaning up the pads with some brake cleaner. Just give them a quick spray and then just a wipe down with tissue paper. I try to wipe down all the dirt off it. You use brake cleaner so you don't get any oils on the brake pads themselves, so they don't squeak. But yeah, we'll see how we go. I don't know if these were squeaking before or if the rotors were gone or contaminated as well, but I gave both of these a clean with brake cleaner. Just spray all around and then wipe it down with a paper towel. And yeah, that was done. Those rotors are ready to go back on. Pads are ready to go back in. Here I'm just putting the rotors on because I don't want them hanging around my place just like messy, otherwise they'll get dirty again. So I decided to chuck them on the wheel, and you can see it still didn't fit, so I ended up having to file more the hub down just to get it to fit. But it ended up being pretty easy, just something they had to do because it's just aluminum. It goes pretty quick when you put the file to it. Definitely quicker than taking out a seat post. And then here, yeah, you can see it fits perfect now. Fits flush, no problems. And then yeah, just pop the screws on, pop it on in a star pattern. You need a T6, I think it's a torque screw, and then yeah, just star pattern and then do them all up nice and snug. And then here, same with the front wheel, putting on the rotor. Make sure you put them in the right direction as well. They'll have it on the rotor itself, which direction it should go. And then here, just putting on this cassette. I think this is an old XT cassette, but it's 8-speed. And there's just a little groove where you line it up and push it on. But yeah, just running a small cassette on this one, just because is what I had. But yeah, it should be pretty light because it's XT. Just like that, goes on. That was looking good. And now I can put the wheels back on the bike. The wheels are finally done with the rotors and the cassette on. I hopefully won't have to take them off again, but I'm not sure. But yeah, it's looking good.
Alright, this is what I'm putting on. I'm putting the Saints off my monopole onto this bike. Probably makes more sense to put it on a downhill bike. And then I also took the Z off it and the chain. The chain might be a little short, but we'll see. I think this cassette here is slightly smaller, so see how it goes. And then BB wise, I'm running this old race face one. Should fit. I think I just need to sort out the spaces. Luckily I've got some spaces here. But yeah, should all go pretty well. The thing I like about this BB is it has a little chart to show you how many spaces to put on. So I'm running a 68 BB, and I'll do one 2.5 spacer on the left hand side and then 2 on the drive side.
Here, just a little bit of copper grease again on the threads. I just put it on the inside, and then just on the inside line, I guess. And then when you push the bottom bracket in, it's gonna push the grease down. And then yeah, just wind it on by hand first, and then until you can't wind it anymore, you can use a socket. This uses I think it's like a notch tool, some type of notch tool. Can't remember what number it was, but yeah, just do it up tight, just like that. And that's looking pretty good. And then same with the other side, just a little bit of grease on the inside. And then yeah, one space on this side, wind it in by hand first. Make sure you're turning it the right way, and it should go in. And that's good. Here, just a little bit of grease on the inside of the bottom bracket. I did this on both sides. Some people put grease on the spindle, on only the spindle, but then when you push it in, the grease doesn't reach the other side because the spindle's too tight, or the hole's too tight. So I like to put both grease on the bottom bracket and the spindle. You can see here basically the chain line is sticking out a little bit far. So what I think it is because this crank is a 1x and the instructions were for a 2x crank. So what I'm going to do is just move the spacers onto the other side. And then here you can see the clearance from the chainstay. This is the difference here. And then you can see that one's a bit closer. So ideally it should be evened out a bit. Alright, there we go. You can see just one space on this side and then 2 here. And yeah, chain line is better. And then putting the other crank arm on, just slide it on and tighten the Allen key bolts. You got to put a little compression cap on first, just finger tight usually, just to take the play out. And after I did that, it seemed like the BB wasn't spinning that well, and I tried moving back and forth on the compression, but yeah, it just didn't seem right. So I think maybe the BB might be a little bit short. Either way, I tightened up the bolts, just alternating sides, just to see how it would be when it's tight. And then, yeah, just gave it a spin. You can see, yeah, basically the same. So yeah, something must be off with it. Alright, just when I thought I was done, I end up switching the BB again because this one spins better. It's just a Shimano one, and you can see the spaces are thick, thin, medium on this side, and then just one on this side. But yeah, I thought it was worth doing now. Yeah, make sure you look up the manual for different BBs because the spaces might be different. But yeah, the Shimano one was a little bit different. Here, just sliding it on. Yeah, just push it in. Again, a little bit of grease in there. And then, yeah, this one spun way better. And then now installing the rear mech. You just got to point it up to make sure it sits right on the hanger. Doesn't flop down. And then, yeah, this is how it is. Give it a little test, and that's looking good too. Alright, so I'm about to size up this chain, and what they say on the Park Tool website is you undo the shock and compress it, and then you measure it normally. So we'll see how it goes. So yeah, you just take out the shock and you compress it all the way. I think what this does is basically it just stops your chain from snapping. If you have a super big compression or you go for a super big drop, it gives the chain enough room. And then yeah, I just rested it like that, put the little bolt back in so I don't lose it, and then size up the chain. And then you can see my chain was slightly too short, so I needed to add a link in there. And yeah, basically it's around the biggest cog on the cassette, biggest chainring on the front. I'm just running a single, so it's the only chainring. And then you add those 2 extra chain sections. And then here, just sliding it through the Z, just make sure when you're sliding it up through the cogs, you're doing it the right way and not sliding on that little bolt next to the jockey wheel. Make sure it's clearing that. And then just like that, hook it on the lowest key on the cassette, and now it's ready to join. Just use a quick link. You got to account for the quick link when you're measuring the chain as well. So yeah, don't forget that. And then here, I couldn't pull the quick link to lock in, so I had to use this method where you just put it on your chain ring, and then you push on the crank arm, and it should click it in while holding onto the wheel. Yeah, snapped in just like that. So that's ready to go. And here, just putting the rear shock back on. Pretty straightforward. And yeah, I think the chain is a good length. Seems alright. I can test it out. If worst comes to worst, I can always take a link out, but it seems pretty decent. And then just switching on the clutch and the derailleur. Alright, so I decided to bleed the brakes first, and this is my setup. I'm going to use this to put inside the brake caliper to block the pistons from coming up. And then I got this isopropyl to clean up the lever. This is going to be for the oil, just using rock oil .5.1. This is going to be for opening the little top cap on the lever. And then this is going to open the valve. And then here I got my caliper set up. I just have it hanging loose, but it kind of fits in my seat like that, so I'm hoping this holds. I got the tube going to a little canister, and then this goes up here, and I got this set up pretty horizontal, so yeah, should be alright. We'll see how we go. So yeah, the good thing about these container separators is you can use as many or as little as you want. So I end up using 5 in there to fully block the pistons. And then here, putting a little bit of dot in here just to make it a little bit easier to pour. And then undoing the brakes. I got my towel there just in case any liquid comes out, but pretty sure nothing's going to come out because I've already emptied the caliper before. But yeah, just take off the screws, make sure you don't lose the screws, take off the little cap. The cap was actually pretty dirty underneath. I wonder what it was. I don't know how dirt and stuff would get in there, but yeah, there was a bunch of stuff in there. And then take out the bladder, just carefully so I don't get oil everywhere. And then here, fill it up with oil. So basically you want to top it up as much as you can, and then you want to open it, squeeze the lever, close off the valve, and then release the lever. And then basically just repeat that. Open the lever, open the valve, squeeze the lever, close the valve. This way, if you just keep it open, the valve open, when you pull your lever, it will drag back in air once you release the lever. So you just got to repeat this process until no more bubbles are coming out. You can see the fluid going down here. Because I don't have the little Hope valve thing, the bleeding kit, I had to do it manually, feed it manually just at the top. And then here, same with the tube, open, close, and then that was pretty good. So I ended up filling up to the brim, and then you got to push the bladder down like this. This is how they say to do it on the Hope video, and then the fluid will spill out, but that's just how they do it, just to make sure there's not any air in there. So you just make sure you have a towel ready and you should be fine. And then when I was putting it on, I was having trouble aligning the plate, the little grooves of the plate with the bladder. So I needed to put the bladder and the cap together first before I put the whole thing in, and that worked like way better for me. Yeah, this all gets a little bit messy with the fluid everywhere, so make sure you have your isopropyl alcohol ready just to clean up after. And then yeah, just screw alternating sides, and then yeah, just compress it down towards the end when you get the screws at a pretty good spot. And then of course when you compress it down, you know, more oil is going to come out. And then clean it up with isopropyl alcohol, and then that's it. Should be good. Pull off the little hose, and then yeah, I learned this off the Hope video as well. There's a little bit of oil in there left, so you just put a little piece of towel in there. And now same thing with the other one. Once you know how to do one, the other one's way easier. You can see here, I try to film where you can see both sides of the caliper and the lever at the same time. And yeah, since I don't have that little reservoir thing, I had to do it back and forth a little bit, but yeah, it wasn't too bad. It would make it way easier with it, but yeah, save a bit of money there. And then yeah, just pump it up until there's no more bubbles, and the lever feels good, and should be good. Put the little bladder back on. Yeah, I think this part's the trickiest part, just having all the oil come out. Yeah, maybe there's a new design in the future where this doesn't happen, but yeah, I don't know, maybe this is the way they need to do it. And then yeah, put the screws back on just evenly, again with the oil coming out. Overall not too bad, just give it a quick wipe and it should be good. Also, you don't have to do those bolts super tight, you don't want to strip them as well. But yeah, that's basically done. Both brakes ready to go. I feel like I won't really know how they work until I put them on the bike, but yeah, they're done for now. So this is the stem I'm chucking on. This is a Azonic World Force stem, and this is I think probably like 35 long, so you should bring the reach in a little bit. And yeah, I might clean up the logo if I get time, but it doesn't look too bad like that anyway. So yeah, we'll chuck this on and see how it goes. Funny enough, after all that sanding, the stem was still pretty tight to get on. I think these old Azonic stems are always known for being tight, because I have another one and it's pretty similar. But yeah, I was able to get it on with some effort. And then here, just putting on the stem cap on. Yeah, with stems it's better to be too tight than too loose, otherwise you're gonna slip out on the handles. And then here, just taking off the stem cap and then putting these Kona bars back on. I'm reusing the same Kona bars because I think they're pretty cool and they have a pretty nice rise to them. They're also, I guess, yeah, period correct, but yeah, maybe in the future I'll switch out for some wider ones, but I think, yeah, these will do the job for now. And that was on. Here I was just testing, just making sure the sweep was right or the angle of the bars was right, and then just testing the stem to make sure it didn't slip out side to side. I've rode bikes where I didn't tighten the stem enough, and then you go off a jump and then hit the dirt and then the bars turn and there's no way you can control your bike. So you definitely want it pretty on there. But yeah, I think a good way to test it is just put the wheel between your legs and then try to turn the bars to see if it turns. Should be pretty solid. And that was on. Pretty happy with that. Here's the bars. I think they look pretty good. I think the stem goes well with these bars. This is the seat post I'm going to be running. It's a Theory, and it's 27.2. It's pretty light, and just running Cane Creek. Little shim in there, Cane Creek ripoff, 27.2 to 30.0. So yeah, I'll be able to run all different size seat posts with this, which is good. So yeah, let's chuck it on. So yeah, what you want to do is just line up the gap of the shim with the gap in the back of or the keyhole in the back of the seat tube, and then yeah, just put it on. I just put a little bit of copper grease in there just to make sure that it doesn't seize up or fuses to the seat tube. But yeah, it fits pretty well. The little lip fits inside the seat collar as well. And then yeah, just here, just a little bit of a copper grease again for the seat post, because you don't want it to move up and down too much or slide up and down. And then yeah, a little bit of excess. I end up putting it more just back on the post. But yeah, you actually don't need a ton of this stuff for it to work. And there we go. That's in. Give it a clean. I think the silver post looks pretty cool. I think it matches the crown that I have on there. And then here, I'm going to reuse these grips as well, but I just want to chuck these little rusty grub screws in a vapor rust. So we'll chuck those in, give these a little bit of cleanup, and should work out alright. I actually like the look of them, and yeah, they feel pretty good too. I don't know if you caught this when I was taking off the bars, but they have these bar ends kind of stuck in there. So a good way to take them out is just screw them in. Be careful not to push it in too far, and then you can pull it out. It takes a little bit of effort, but I think this is the best way that I found to do it. You just make sure you just screw it in an angle and then pull it out. Easy. And then here, cleaning up the little brake adapters. I'm using the same one that came off the bike. So first I sprayed brake cleaner on them, and then I used the detergent water spray just to get rid of some of the dirt that was kind of caked on. And then yeah, these brake adapters, the bigger one goes on the back and then the smaller one goes on the front. Not sure why that is. It's actually pretty confusing, but yeah, it seems like on the front you always go 20 mil smaller, but yeah, look it up. It's a little bit tricky. Make sure you just get the right brake adapters for your rotor size. But yeah, I was lucky enough to have these rotors and these brake adapters already on the bike, so I can just chuck it on. And then just do them up loose for the time being, because you need to center the brakes, and then putting on the brake lever. I'm just estimating where it goes on the bars for now, just I can change that later. And then what I'm doing here is I'm loosening the brake cable a little bit so I can rotate it to give it a bit of a better flow, and then just tighten it back up. And then here I'm just pumping up the brakes. I realized when I was pumping the brake lever is that the pistons actually sit a little bit further than what I bled it at, because now it has the brake pads in and it can kind of go in a little bit more. It took a while for it to kind of fill up and get stiff, but I feel like there would be a little bit of oil that you could fit inside the brake lever now to make it a little bit more stiff. So yeah, I'll probably have to give it a little bit of a rebleed. And then here, just working out where the brake cable go. It can either go on the front here, or I'm going to try fit in the back. I didn't want it crossing because it would go up against the stanchion, but yeah, I'll push it in here and then see how that works. Goes behind the crown. And then yeah, here just testing it. Seems alright for now. You can still like X up. Here just putting on the re-brake adapter. So yeah, you just want to put the brake adapter on tight and then just the brake caliper on loose. And then usually the brake adapters have an up engraved onto them, so you know which way is facing up. But yeah, if you don't know, put your caliper on and make sure the pads is matching the rotor. Here just putting the brake lever on and then lining up the brake hose to see where it goes. I think this brake hose is a little long right now because I think I shortened the stem, and also maybe it was on a bigger bike. I also got some short bars. But you can see when I was pumping the lever, oil was coming out, and I didn't realize until I saw it all on the ground. So yeah, I feel like that's gonna be an issue. You can see it all on the ground there, not good. And then I had to work out where the leak was coming from. Initially I thought it was from the top, and then I just tried to tighten it. I cleaned it up, tightened the bolts up the top, but it wasn't that. And then I realized it was coming from where the hose connects to the lever. I thought straight away it's got to be that little copper washer that was missing, but it turns out it wasn't. The copper washer was on this side, and it turns out that this barb has cracked, so that's where the oil was coming out. So you know what that means.
Alright, so it seems like we've run into another problem here. You can see I put the hope brake on. It's all the way kind of pushed this way, but it still hits the rotor. So the problem with that is the wheel's always going to rub and I can't move it over anymore for it to be a gap. What I'm going to need to do is take out the axle, and then hopefully there's a washer on the axle that I can move from this side to the other side, and then that should push the whole wheel that way, or push the whole hub body that way. And then yeah, and then hopefully that gives me enough room to adjust the brake.
So yeah, I kind of speed this up a bit, but basically you just got to take off the washer. I took off this side because it's easily accessible, because the other side had the cassette in the way. And then take the axle out, and I realized that looking at the axle that I could probably just flip it around the other way, and that's exactly what I did. When you're doing this, be real careful because you don't want any bearings to kind of pop out. You can see one of the bearings fell out, and I just had to be careful when I was putting the axle back in the opposite way. Make sure you work the bearing back in there. And then that was on. And then yeah, screw the little cone piece back on, and then also the other end washer. You're going to have to tension the wheel, but I just want to make sure it fits first.
Alright, so I just popped it back on, and you can see that the chain clearance is good, so you just got to check that. Make sure it clears, not scrape on anything. And then here's the brake. You can see it's got room on both sides now. I haven't tightened the bolts yet, just kind of just estimated it. But yeah, look at that. I think someone just put the axle in the wrong way. Alright, here's the shifter I'm going to put on. These are Suntour XC shifters, but I'm going to run the left one, which is friction. And I'm just going to put it underneath here. Going to run it just under like that. It's a little tight for room, so we'll see how we go.
Yeah, it's a shame. It would have been better if I could flip it up above, but yeah, the hope caliper gets in the way, or the little reservoir.
Alright, so I just got it running underneath right there, and you can see it doesn't start off from right the start position, but I think this should still be enough cable to pull it. So yeah, let's see how this goes.
And then you can see kind of how it works with the reach here. You got to give it a little push when it gets towards the end, but yeah, not bad.
And then here I'm just going to use the old brake cable and housing if you can't see it, you just gotta release the tension and then it'll be in there. And I think the cable length should be alright. I think the only one I have to adjust is this last one. This last one seems a little bit long just because it's a different type of derailleur. It actually ends right there.
Yeah, sometimes it's nice to be able to reuse the gear cable and also the housing. It was in pretty decent condition and it was still kind of flexible, so that's kind of how I gauge. And yeah, just give it a trim, take off the ferrule off the old bit and then put it on the end of the new one. And then yeah, it should fit pretty well. And then that's it. Usually when they're in decent condition, you can reuse most of the parts if it hasn't rusted or anything like that. And then sliding the gear cable through. And then just tightening it up at the bottom. I just pull it as tight as I can with my hand and then tighten it up. Yeah, and it goes through all the gears you can see here. I think I was pretty lucky because the Z derailleur was already set to an 8-speed. So yeah, it was pretty close. I just need to put a little bit more tension on the cable and that was it. Shifts up pretty easily and then here is shifting down. Usually, yeah, because it's friction, you just try to line it up.
Alright, these came today, so I'm gonna chuck one in. Hopefully that fixes the leak. What I gotta do is take the wheels off so I don't get oil in the rotors. And yeah, let's go.
Yeah, sometimes it's like this with second-hand parts, but yeah, just keep pushing on and hopefully eventually it'll be fixed. So yeah, just took off the wheels and then undid this to put the new one in. Just unscrew it basically. And then I looked online on how to take these out and the Hope video just cuts it off. And I didn't want to cut off my cable, so I'm going to try to pull it out. Just be careful with that copper washer as well. I ended up putting that copper washer on the other brake hose on the left hand side. And then here you can see I'm using a little pair of pliers trying to pull it off. That ended up working. It was pretty tight, but I could pull it off. And then same with the little olive here. And then I need to get the new olive on, and what I did was I wrapped sticky tape around the end because of the braided cable. It had little metal bits coming out everywhere, so winding it up with wrapping it with a little bit of tape and then feeding it through the olive helped heaps. And then here you just push this end bit on and then you should be able to wind it on, and what happens is it should compress everything together. Don't forget the little olive here, I mean the little copper washer, and then yeah, just wind it on nice and tight. Here, a thing I noticed that they might not tell you is when you're winding it on, if you hold onto the brake cable and rotate the little cap, sometimes the cap will rotate the cable with it, so you just need to hold onto it so it doesn't do that. I ended up pre-rotating the cable the other way, so when I rotated it on, it would be where I wanted it to be. Then I gave it some more dot oil.
Alright, so what's happening now is I'm pumping the brake, but nothing, it closes, but it doesn't close that much. So I think I gotta put more oil in or something's blocking the line.
Yeah, it's a little strange because I just filled it, so I didn't understand what was going on, why it wasn't working, so I had to take it off. And I was hoping that maybe there's some air stuck in there, but I opened the caliper and it seemed like it was completely solid oil coming out, so that didn't seem like the issue. And I ended up shaking the braided cable and just adding more fluid in, and did that for quite a bit.
Alright, it seems to be working now, so I'm gonna keep pumping them and hopefully shaking the hose helps. Alright, now I'm gonna spread the pads out and that should be good.
Yeah, the reason why I wanted to push all the calipers all the way out is because I want to make sure oil was completely filled inside the chamber, and in that way my brakes should feel a bit better. And then yeah, you just kind of press them out with a screwdriver, flathead screwdriver should work. And then after that, you top it back up, top up the lever with more oil, and yeah, it should work. But yeah, it was kind of like super frustrating because I was going back and forth, filling up, couldn't work out why it wasn't working. But yeah, I guess sometimes working on new stuff is like that. You don't really know why. And then my rotor kept on scraping, so I used a wolf tooth little tool there, shared out boot bike.
Alright, so the brakes are done, and yeah, I just had to check for leaking around here and here. So make sure these are done tight. Obviously not so tight, it busts the threads, but tight enough to create a seal. And then I also noticed down here it was leaking a little bit, so I tightened it up and just dried it off with isopropyl alcohol. And same with this one. So when I did these back up, I didn't do them tight enough, so make sure you do them tight enough. And it seems like there's no leaks. You can try squeezing the lever and stuff, but these are pretty good, so hopefully it holds. Alright, so we got this saddle here, and it's pretty kind of chunked up. You can see it's coming off all the way in the back, missing some foam. But what I'm going to do is try to patch it up with a little piece of material, and I might glue some foam in there just to fill it up. But yeah, we'll see how we go.
Yeah, I was thinking of doing a full wrap again for this one, but I couldn't find the right material in time, and I figured, oh, maybe I'll just patch it up for now and then see how that goes. I do quite like the grey of the saddle. I think it looks pretty cool, but yeah, I'll probably rewrap the whole thing in the future. But basically what you do is you just take off, well, I ended up taking off just the back half or the back quarter, and then just be careful when you're ripping the suede off, because it could stick to the foam. You don't want to rip the foam. And I had these little foam cushion bits lying around, so I cut a little bit off, and I looked online. They say you just glue it on with wood glue, and that's kind of exactly what I did. Just cut it to the right size, just guess, and then just squeeze it in there. Yeah, there wasn't really too much technique here. I was thinking I could just glue it on and then maybe I could shave off the rest. So yeah, trying to glue on more than I need. And then you can see the back here, I needed a little bit more. So again, with the wood glue. The wood glue dries kind of hard, but when you press it on the foam, it does kind of give a little bit. So yeah, doesn't dry 100% hard, so it's pretty good for like a foam seat. And then here, I got this little spare material, I think off some Dickies pants actually, and yeah, I just glued the top half onto it because I wanted to be able to wrap it. This is after the top half is dried. And then I end up putting more glue on the top here because I want to glue the cover of the seat down now. And there's really no way, no right way to do this. Like I was kind of just freestyling at this point, knowing that it probably won't look that good. But yeah, you just kind of do what you can, and then you staple it back up together. And then it was real hard to wrap this corner bit, so I end up having to re-stitch it. Yeah, it was a little bit of a pain, but it made it easier in the long run. So yeah, you can see it's basically on, and now I ended up putting the bottom piece back on just to hold everything together. And then after that, started putting glue underneath the top of the bike seat material. And then this is what ended up looking like. Just use a toothpick and glue to edge all of it after it's glued down. And then we'll see how it dries.
Alright, here's the next day. Just dried it up. It's pretty dry now, and you can see all the glue. You can't really see it, or it's turned clear, but it has left some residue. So what I'm going to do is try to paint it up and clean it up a little bit.
Yeah, initially I wasn't going to paint it. I was just going to leave it the grey material, but I think because I got so much glue on there, it kind of looks a little weird. So I decided to, just mix up some house paint as close as I could and put it on. Here you can see I'm mixing it. Ended up being a little bit purple. So I tried to add a little bit more black to it. But yeah, basically I just did as close as I can. I'm using latex house paint so it doesn't crack, and it kind of never gets off your clothes, so it will never get off this saddle. But yeah, it should dry alright. And basically I just pat it down my finger, and it should make it kind of a little bit more matte. But yeah, basically, yeah, just do what you can. You can see even the one I did, it ended up the paint being a bit off. Alright, here it is. I think last thing to do is just let it dry and see how it is. I got as close as I can. You can see this side's probably slightly too blue, but I think it'll do the job. Yeah, also sometimes when you work with dark paints, it dries lighter, and you work with light paints and it dries darker. So you're basically just giving a guess at that point. I end up using both types of paint, so I didn't know how it would dry. And then here, just finishing up the saddle. The paint dried alright, I think. But yeah, just using a little bit of WD-40 and foil, and basically just go to town on it. This one was pretty much pitted in a lot of areas, so there's only so much you can do. But yeah, I was able to get a lot of it off, which was helpful. But yeah, just use foil and just go over WD-40 as clean as you can, and then give it a wipe down, and then yeah, this is what it looks like. You can still see some of the black bits, but yeah, overall not too bad. And then here, installing the saddle. Finally, the saddle's done, can put it on. And yeah, the angle of the saddle, I always try to do it in a way where it looks good, like up and down. Usually I probably run it down for downhill, so I try to align it with the top of the top tube. Yeah, I always go back and forth. Should I go flatter, or should I point the nose up more? And also, it's kind of what you're comfortable with. I tend to sit back a bit more when the bars are up higher than the seat. And also, when you're going downhill, the seat could feel more horizontal, and then also sliding off the back. When you're over the back of the bike, it's easier to slide off, obviously. Alright, getting close now. So yeah, just putting on the grips back together. Took them all out of the vapor rust, took most of the rust off. And then yeah, I just rinsed them out, sprayed them with WD-40 to protect them from flash rusting. You can see I left them in the sun to dry for a bit. And then yeah, you kind of just chuck them back in. Not too much to it actually, just put them in, put the grub screws on, and then yeah, ended up being pretty good. I think the grips themselves, after I gave them more clean, felt a little bit tacky. But yeah, we'll see how they go after I ride it. But yeah, not too bad. It's worth giving it a shot since they were free grips anyway. And then here, yeah, just slide it on. Make sure it goes up to the end so you can clamp on it. And then I just do these finger tight. I think the grips look pretty cool, like an old style, like lock-on grips. And then yeah, that was basically it for that. Make sure your levers are lined up. Alright, these are pedals I'm chucking on. These are Sunline V1 pedals. And yeah, they're downhill pedals, so I think they match this bike. Alright, that's the final thing. Let's give it a rip. Alright, so yeah, super psyched. The bike is so much fun to ride. Just makes, yeah, going downhill feel like nothing at all. The brakes work pretty well. I think I need to strain up the rotors a little bit, maybe put a little bit more dot fluid in there to stiffen them up. And the grips, definitely new grips, too sticky. The seat held up well, but yeah, no leaks or anything, pretty hype with that. Here's the final breakdown of price and stuff, and also plus parts. And then I want to say it took me probably like 4 weeks on and off to get it finished. And then the question you've all been waiting for, was it worth it? I think for me it was definitely worth it. It's just super fun to ride. You can just cruise around, hop off bumps and stuff, and it feels like nothing. It also doesn't ride that heavy either. And the skills I learned, reholding the brakes, the forks and the pivots, yeah, they'll last me a lifetime. Hopefully you picked up a few things too. And yeah, let me know what you think. As always, thanks for watching, appreciate all the support, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.